So, what's your story? When did you start? Why did you start? Did you start by yourself? Did you start with another company?
Okay, so I used to work for a soccer company. I used to teach soccer to kids, a lot like you. And we taught through stories, educational stories to little ones. So that's how I learned how to work with children, talk to children, get on the child's level, and how to be a child. That's the biggest thing. I do honestly believe that some people are better at it than others, and some people are just more childlike themselves. So I found people like you and me and other natural coaches just have that instinct. And, I found that I had it and I was good at what I did. I was good at working with kids. And anyways, I did it for 4 years as a soccer coach and I just couldn't do it anymore. I had experience. I used to work at the YMCA as a swim instructor and as a lifeguard. And so I had some experience on teaching kids how to swim. One of my soccer clients found out about that. And so I started teaching them privately on the side. And, once you teach one kid, they tell their friends, and one thing led to another. I ended up teaching this super wealthy client, and he had a beautiful house, and he had like 5 kids or 4 kids. And I had taught all of the kids to swim, and he just kept pushing me to start the business and so on and so forth. So he would always just send me late night text messages like articles about starting a swim school or a business. And so he just pushed me, and he was just that right mentor that I needed at that time. So then I kind of branched off from my soccer company, and then I was kind of doing both at the same time. And then they fired me. Like, hey, not in a bad way, in a good way. It was the best thing they ever did for me. Like, hey, we love you, Jacob. We can see your heart's not in soccer anymore. Go be a swimmer. Go teach some lessons. And then one thing led to another. And then I was able to provide the soccer coaches with a side job for them to make extra money, connected them with clients and kids. And then and then I started connecting with preschools. So we used to coach soccer in preschools. And I knew some of the preschools had pools. Where we live in South Florida, that's pretty common. Not really anywhere else in the U.S. But so we started working with the preschools. And I started teaching at the preschools. And then now we have 8 preschools. We have 7 preschools and 1 large community / city that we work for, and that we teach lessons in. So that's how we got started, and that's how it came to be.
It's super interesting to hear you tell the story because it's so close to what I did.
Yeah.
I started with soccer, and then I went to swimming, and then I got fired from swimming. That helped me start the whole program. And like what you said about soccer and the side job for swimming, my goal is to make a sports school. And the whole premise of the sports school is to teach swimming part-time and teach the other sports that you love for the rest of the time. And I think that at the end of the day is going to work. But for me, it's pretty interesting to hear you just say the same stuff almost from a whole different side.
That's funny, right?
So you work mainly with the preschools? Do they pay you from the preschool and then the parents pay the school?
Depends. Each preschool is different. Some are open campuses and some are closed campuses. Closed means the school pays us. Open means the parents pay us. Only students that attend a closed campus can attend swim lessons there. Anybody can attend an open campus. So it's open to the community.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
And did you have a differentiation from when you started to other swim schools in the area? Were there more swim schools around you? Were there not a lot?
There wasn't a ton. There's definitely more now. They keep popping up, and the bigger schools are starting to make their way towards Palm Beach County. Goldfish just opened up here in Palm Beach County. But there's been a couple that have been around for a very long time. There's one not even a mile away from us. And, they do the exact same thing we do. They rent from a school. They've been there for he has to have been there for 20 years. He's been there for a long time. He's a one school spot. And he does very well. He's very successful where he's at. And then there's a couple indoor schools out west, but putting a school where we live is extremely expensive, a minimum of $5 million to build a school here. That's a minimum. And that's if they were to buy and build. If you rent and build, it's $1.5 to $2.5 million for a full rebuild, unless you build a small one, but.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Do you think the big schools are going to come in and kind of hurt your business, or do you think it's going to be even compete?
2 things will happen. The bigger schools, because there's the big five. I think they're the big five. There's like the Emler Swim School, Goldfish, Stream. I don't know, Streamline Brands. They own like 250 different schools. I think their goal is to just buy smaller schools up. And so a lot of people at the conference that I was just at, they think that could be the next big move, is a lot of smaller schools are just going to be purchased. And then that's how they'll make their way in, or they'll just pop up franchises with people that are investors, people that have the $2 million just sitting around doing nothing with. They could go that route as well. But as for them coming in, I mean, Palm Beach County is a really expensive place to put a school. So financially, it would be tough for them to come in and build them from scratch. But for them to come in and buy, that's different. Cool.
Yeah, that just happened up here in a town right near me. A big company came in and bought a small swim school. Swim school had 2 locations for about 10 years. Yeah. And they just got bought out last year.
Hey, glory to them, because they've probably been doing it for a long time and they're just tired. There comes a point where, all right, I can't teach any more kids.
Yeah.
and then selling is the best option. You sell, it goes to the next person who's going to take care of it. They want to make money too, and they want to be successful, right? So hopefully they take care of it and it continues to grow.
Sweet. Let's get into some swim stuff. I know we talked a little bit last time, and we're going to go over it again. Just a little bit about bubbles. So I always talk about bubbles as like an antique swim skill that most schools use just because they've been using it for years. Picking a fight against surface bubbles and teaching surface bubbles to kids who cannot go underwater or are scared to put their face in. So just get your thoughts on bubbles.
Well, you're picking a fight with the YMCA is what you're doing.
Yeah.
That's a traditional. I mean, it's in their curriculum, and the reason why. So like I said in the last call, it's important to look at both sides. Always. You can never look at an argument from only one side, especially if you want to win. All right. So why do they teach bubbles? Well, breath control, right? So they don't inhale the water. It doesn't go in their nose, right? That's why they have it in their curriculum. Now, why do people like you and me not teach bubbles, right? From a standpoint from us, we don't want them to exhale their air out when they go underwater because that will limit their ability to be underwater and to save themselves, right? I mean, that's typically why we teach that. I don't know about you, but I teach a lot of flip and float method. So for me, I need them to hold their breath until they roll over. If they let out any of their air and they just get a glimpse of their face out of the water and they go to inhale the air and the water slips in, there it goes. They're done. It'll happen just like that. And that's when panic would set in and they would just flail their bodies until they drown themselves. So in order to prevent that, we don't teach bubbles, right?
Yeah.
But, like I said in the last call, it can be valuable for the right kid. So the one kid who's petrified of the water, who's 5 years old, whose mom and dad threw him in the pool at 4 and thought it would work and it didn't, and now they are so scared they won't even touch the water with their big toe, right? So that kid should probably learn how to blow some bubbles, right? And maybe even, I don't know. Maybe throw a float vest on them or something just to get them in the water, and then you ease them out of that stuff. But that's up to the coach. There's plenty of ways to do it without a vest or without any flotation devices. But I agree, no bubbles unless you have that one specific instance with that scared or petrified kid. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think there's definitely spots where it could be used. I had a conversation on one of the aquatics director chat groups, and somebody told me I was teaching my kids how to suffocate themselves, or hyperpoxic breathing or something like that. Most kids can hold their breath for 10 seconds, and that's kind of like all we're really looking for. I'm not asking you to swim the whole pool underwater. I do a lot of glide, kick, and then roll, but one of my coaches does a lot of just rolling off the gate.
I do rolling out of the gate. So, my kids are all very small too. Like, the typical age that I see is, around 6 to 8 months. So my goal is as soon as they go towards water is they roll immediately. And that's what I teach. It doesn't happen for all the kids, but I want them to like want to lean into the pool and then start to roll over before they even touch the water. So it's about habit building.
Makes sense. And then if you teach the bubbles too early, that kid goes in, blows bubbles, and if they can't get out, to me,
they can't roll. Yeah, or like I said earlier, if they do try to roll and they're exhaling the air, and then they get a glimpse of them being out of water, if they get that sense that they are out of the water and they inhale too early, they're just gonna inhale all the water. It's gonna go right in their mouth, and that's when true panic will set in. Because once you've inhaled water, it's happened to me once. Like I've almost drowned a couple times, 3 times to be specific, and one was like 2.5 years ago in my own pool. Yeah, man, I got stuck under my own pool cover.
Oh,
yeah, I had been and I just got done teaching lessons all day. I was teaching like all day, but like maybe like 7 hours in the pool, and I was just out of it. I just wasn't thinking, and I went to go clean up all the toys from the bottom of my pool, and I had one employee at the time, one helper, and he had put the pool cover on, but left all the toys on the bottom. And I'm like, I'm a good swimmer, I'll be fine. Stupid. So stupid. I came up, I forgot the cover was there. I just lost it, and it suctioned around my face, and I just freaked out.
oh man.
Panic just set in. So it happens, like panic, well, as soon as panic, you lose all train of thought. And you're just adrenaline, like fighting, and I just kept ripping at the cover, pulling on it, and then thank God, a bubble of air was trapped under the cover like a few feet away, and I was able to push the cover up enough so the bubble escaped into my pocket.
Sounds pretty intense.
Yeah, imagine that as a headline, like swim instructor drowns himself.
Yeah.
In a pool you can stand up in.
Yeah. Conspiracy theory on that one.
It is panic.
I think one thing that I teach my instructors is to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And to me, sometimes over teaching is getting in the way. So one of the reasons why I say that bubbles shouldn't be in the curriculum is because the kids who don't need it, if you're teaching them, some could just be wasting time, but some could actually go negatively. Like we said, if they're blowing bubbles immediately and they go under. So it's like, for me, I wait to see if they need the bubbles and when they need the bubbles, and then I introduce the bubbles and how to do it.
Yeah.
Instead of having it specifically part of the curriculum. But I'm purposely picking a fight with the YMCA and all the traditional swim schools on purpose, because I want some of that hate that you were talking about last time.
All right. It's coming. It's coming. Get ready.
I'm ready for it.
Here's the thing, like, I only will teach bubbles when the child is ready to pick up their head and take a breath. That is it. Once I can see the child can pick up their head at least 2 times swimming out to me, like, and a good pickup, not a crappy one, like a good solid pickup. Okay, it's time to learn how to pop your head up and do a pop-up breath. Okay, then now I'm going to teach that. But I also notice if I just teach the kids to flip and float, eventually they just pop themselves up. They just figure it out.
Yeah.
So, and they don't even do the bubbles. They just come up and then keep swimming. And they just eventually will figure it out on their own.
Yeah. Yeah, the figuring it out on their own, I think, is huge for most kids. And a lot of my instructors who are lifetime swim instructors actually get in the way so much. And as soon as they stop getting in the way, the kids start swimming.
Exactly.
Just give them some space and let them do it.
Yeah, overcoaching, yeah.
Cool. Let's go to flotation devices. That's my next fight that I'm picking next month.
What?
It's going to be against flotation devices.
Ooh. Okay.
Some swim schools go all flotation devices, and I say it's mostly to get more kids in the pool so they can make more money and be safe at the same time. So That's my argument against the flotation devices, such as like the bubbles or overusing the barbells or the noodles. Obviously, like the bubbles themselves, it's like there's specific times where you need a noodle or you might need a barbell, but if it's specifically part of your curriculum, I think it's kind of a waste of time and sometimes holding the kid back. What are your thoughts on flotation device?
Okay, yeah. So I recently had this battle with a parent, actually, and this parent didn't want their child to go underwater. The child was 5. They didn't want the child to learn by putting their face underneath the water. They wanted the child to learn with their face above the water. And I talked to these parents. I never actually met them in person. It was over text message. They had signed their child up. The child already had like 2 lessons, and the coach let the child jump out to her, and the coach didn't catch her. Now, should the coach done that? Probably not. I mean, I don't know. I wasn't there, so I didn't see it. Okay, I don't know what the situation. If the kid was happy and trying to go underwater, whatever, yeah, I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have caught the kid. But if the child had never been underwater and they're 5 years old, probably not the best way to go about it, because if they do inhale, they're old enough where that fear could really set in, and that's not positive either. So, with that being said, I looked into certain flotation devices that other swim schools use, right? There's the backpack one. It's like a little block thing, okay? Yeah. And then what they do is they take the pieces off over time. And it does teach the child to swim over time, right? And then there's something that elderly people use in their aqua fitness classes, and it's like a belt. And it's the same concept, right? So the pieces come off, and then over time you have nothing, right? That's kind of the idea, I guess. And then there's the shark fin. And the shark fin is really neat. Actually, one of our locations uses the shark fin for certain kids that need it. And it does help them swim, especially kids that have a really hard time staying horizontal in the water. So it kind of comes back down to the other battle with the bubble. It's like, there's value in certain areas. How do we not overuse them, right? Like you stated. And when is the right time to use them, right? So I don't know about you, but we teach a lot of ASD children, autism, children on the spectrum, right? I think the proper term now is neurodiverse children, right? Those kids will 100% benefit with a flotation belt on. Now, I teach them without, I teach them with, I played with both, but I have this one child that I'm working with right now. I put a belt on him. Now he's down to like one little block float that's like this big, this thick, and he can pick up his head, he's swimming, and then I just take it off of him. So we'll start with 3, we go to 2, we go to 1, then we take it off. Now, am I doing a whole lot in that lesson? No, I'm not. The flotation device is doing a lot of the work for me. So there's pros, there's cons, there's specific kids that it works with, and then it's very important that they experience no flotation device also, right? So if you're going to use it, you need to minimize how they're using it and be very aware of the structure of how they're using it, right?
Yeah, I guess in my brain, it's like speed and efficiency. It's like we get kids for 1 day a week for 30 minutes most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's how much time we get to teach them how to swim. And for me, my previous swim schools that I worked at, they would let kids go months, sometimes a year without actually swimming. And for me, that's too long, way too long. So I find that the quickest way to get a kid to swim is to get a kid to get in there and do it by themselves. So while I understand if you take the belt and you remove it every time, it can help a little bit. But that's like, for example, one of my swim instructors has been teaching swimming for like 25 years. And he's like swim team swimmer and likes to teach swim teams. So he's got these little kids on a kickboard working on their kicks. Now, they might kick perfect on the kickboard the whole pool. But my argument is when you take that kickboard away, they can't swim. They would drown. And our job as a learn to swim program is to get that kid to swim safely, right? So he's trying to get the kid to be Michael Phelps with the perfect hip rotation and the right legs. But with our 30 minutes a week, if you keep doing that, it'll take way longer to actually get that kid to swim. Well, I feel like to get them right in the water immediately is the quickest and most efficient way to kind of get them to swim.
Right. So, and this is where it's almost a personal argument for yourself, because now at this conference that I just went to, this is my first one that I went to, right? I met so many different types of coaches, so many different swim schools. Everybody had their own way of doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. Everyone's ultimate goal is get the kids swimming, right? And there was a lot of coaches there was a lot of coaches that use flotation devices, and there's a lot of coaches that do the very slow method like you were stating. Ultimately, and this is what people said, it's like the end goal is all the same. Now, it's really up to the parents and how they want their child to learn, because a parent could go into a swim school and be like, you know what, I don't want my kid using a floaty, I'm going to go somewhere else. Does everybody have that opportunity? Probably not, but still, it's hard because both sides do have value. But I guess your argument is clearly what is going to be the quickest and most efficient way. But their argument will be, well, it's not about that. It's about making sure the child enjoys every second of it and loves it, and they're the butterfly swim school, whatever, right?
Yep.
So
this is my rebuttal to that argument is when I first started, I was the fun guy. That's why I got so many swimmers. Because every kid had a great experience, and I didn't even know how to teach them all how to swim yet. I was learning how to teach them all how to swim, but they all had a great time. So they kept coming back, and I grew a very large list from just being the fun guy to making these kids who never wanted to go to swim lessons before just to want to show up. It took me sometimes a lot longer to get kids to swim in that way until I figured out what I do now. So I think the reason, if you put it on the parent's choice, it's because parents' expectation of swim lessons is so low that they don't actually think that their kid is going to swim. So, for example, I have this little girl, she's 3 years old. She came this week. She's doing 5 days a week. So today's Wednesday. It'll be her third day. Yesterday, I told the dad, like, she'll swim the whole pool by Friday. And he laughed at me. And he thought I was, like overshooting it. But by Friday, she's going to be swimming the whole pool. But his expectation for his kid is just to go in there and have a good time.
Right.
So my argument is, like, if we know how to get this kid to swim the fastest, once the kid is swimming, then the parent's going to be happy either way. So sometimes if you take the parent's approach, it actually makes it harder to teach that kid how to swim. So like this morning, we had a mom come in and she walked her kid in who was crying, and she told my coach, like, can we go easy today? Because he's a little bit nervous, right? Now that kid is anxious and he's thinking about the back float the whole week. Because last week he learned it for the first time. Now he's thinking about it. Now, if we take it easy on that kid from mom's perspective and we don't let him back float today, next week he's going to be double as anxious because he didn't get it. Today we got him in, got him comfortable, got him on his back. As soon as he back floated, he kind of relieved himself of the anxiety because he was waiting for it. So it's like, for me, it's understanding what that kid needs, regardless of what the parent thinks that kid needs. Because I don't think parents are always correct. And I think the parents say that because when they go to the YMCA, they don't see results. They don't always put it on the YMCA. They just say, like, my kid's not ready, or maybe my kid's not getting it, or my kid's just not going to be a swimmer. And I think that's part of the reason. And one of the things that I'm trying to go against is that the bar is so low that people will leave their kids swim lessons for a year and pay every month and never put their face in the water. And to me, that just doesn't make sense. And when you set the bar that low, they don't have any expectation other than just get my kid to smile, get my kid to have fun, which is great. And we all want the kids to have fun, but we also need them to learn. So I just feel like if you know the most efficient way to get them to swim, you just got to attack it and get them there. Because at the end of the day, once they're swimming, they're all going to be happy. Like, I've pushed many kids very hard, but once I was done with the process that I was going for, they all loved it and they all come back. I haven't had kids that were like, I don't want to swim with that guy. Now, in the middle of the process on Tuesday, they're like, I don't want to swim with that guy because he's making me do stuff I don't want to do. But by Friday, once they can do it, they build their own confidence. They're like, all right, this was actually not as bad as I thought. So I think it's like two ways. You got to understand that our job is to get them to swim. And this kid might run into a pool next Thursday. And I only have one class from now till next Thursday to make sure that he can turn and float and not die. And then if I sit there and put him on a kickboard to make sure his kicks are right, or make him do specific skills that are not helping him survive, then I'm kind of doing a disservice to the parent and the child. That might be a little extreme, but
no, it's not even extreme. It makes sense to me. I totally get it. And I teach, you and me teach very similar. We do, you know. But the thing is, it's an impossible argument because there will always be those people, dude. Like I told you, like people hate me, and I'm loving on the kids. I do my best, you know, and I put myself out there, but people don't like me. I've had people in swim instructor group chats that people tag me in, and it's just a bunch of instructors like going off about how I teach and why I teach that way, whatever, right? It's not going to go away. They do it's called child first, love first lessons, right? I think it's great. I think a lot of swim schools do it, and I think it's beautiful how they teach, and those kids, they all love it, they enjoy it. Is it going to get them the quickest swimming? No, it's not, but is there a place for it? Yeah, there is. There is a place for it, and that's the biggest thing. Now, how do we, I think your statement is like, how do we set the bar higher, or how do we set expectations higher for the industry as a whole? And I honestly, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how you would do that other than just keep putting content out of what people should be expecting, you know, because then there's the other battle, like the survival lesson battle. Should kids be going through survival lessons at 6 months old? Because ISR is teaching kids to swim by 14, 15 months old. They're swimming the whole pool. Flip, float, swim, flip, float, swim, float. You know what I mean? Yeah. Should the expectation be that? Should that would be what everyone's going through? But then a lot of people don't want to see their kids cry.
Yeah.
You know, and that's tough, right? And most of those parents don't watch those lessons. They don't sit there and watch them because it's too tough for them to watch. And the kid's going to ingest water. You know, anyways, so it's just opinions.
It is an opinion. I'm trying to figure out how to make it, I guess, set the bar higher so that people can have a different opinion. So, for example, I have a coach. He doesn't work here anymore, but very good at getting kids comfortable. So I had a mom. I talked to her a little while ago. So she came a couple of years ago. She had one coach, and the kid didn't like it. She went to the second coach, made him comfortable. She loved it. She used to tip him on Venmo, like after the class, like an extra $100 because she loved it. From my perspective and from his boss perspective, I was like, you're doing a good job. The kid loves it, mom loves it, but he could be swimming by now, and you're not getting him to swim. So then this guy parted ways with us, and I took the kid over. 2 weeks later, I had him swim the whole pool. So now mom was like, whoa, like, I need you. Now she's like asking me for lessons next year. She's trying to book ahead. Yeah. And when she had the other coach, she was happy. But she didn't know that if he was with me, he'd be swimming faster. And then once she swam with me and realized that I was going to get him to swim faster, she was now like, oh, I want this. Yep. So that's why I think the expectation creates like the demand of like, do I want my kid to have fun or do I want my kid to swim? My expectation is like, I just want him to have a good time because that's the bar. But if I see that, oh shit, this guy's going to get my kid to swim, I'd rather do that. But I guess you're right. It's like putting out more content to show that would help, because now it's like, if you want your kid to do this and actually swim, this is the method that you need to use.
This is kind of what I was just thinking. I was like, you like when your parents come in, have them pick. How long do you want this to take? You want it to take a week, 6 months, or 2 years? Which one?
Well, I actually do the opposite. I'm like, so a parent came in for a clinic a couple weeks ago and told my coach, like, oh, why is she not using the barbell? And it's like, we don't use the barbell because we're trying to get her to swim. And it's like, we're not going to do it your way. If you want it done your way, you can go somewhere else. And we teeter on the line of our goal is to have fun in the beginning, to get them comfortable. But then you have to turn up the heat eventually. Yeah. So it's like, when you turn up the heat is like the whole coaching method. It's how good you are at understanding if this kid's ready to go or not. But I would refuse to teach a kid the way that the parent wants to teach it if I know the kid's going to be better in the way that I'm teaching them. So I don't give them the option as much. Other of my coaches get nervous because they're not me, and they feel like they don't have the confidence to tell the parent, like, no, the kid needs to learn this way. Like, I know what I'm doing. Right. And that they will be more apt to be like, oh, if you don't want him to go underwater today, he doesn't have to. But I'm at the point where I'm like, if you wanted your kid to swim, you came here for a reason. I'm going to have to do my job the way I do it. If you want to do it your way, then you can go do it your way. But I can't do it your way and not get the kid to swim, because then at the end of the day, if your kid's not swimming, you come back to me and be like, hey, I've been paying and my kid's not swimming. And it's like, because we're doing it your way. You wanted your kid to get results, it has to be the way. We know how to get the results. It's kind of what we're trying to portray. It's like, we know what your specific kid needs. So if you just let us do it for 4 to 6 weeks, it'll work every time. So that's the argument I'm trying to get to the parents. It's like, I don't care. Not that I don't care. It's like, I just know better than you. I know you're the parent. You see your kid all the time. But some of the reasons kids can't swim is because they're the child of the parent. And the parent is what causes them to be nervous or be uncomfortable or whatever. So if you're the one causing the anxiety, how are you going to tell me how to fix the anxiety if you're the one who's kind of enabling it to keep going? And I'm trying to show you.
How do you tell a parent that nicely?
It's like, I had a kid this morning who was screaming. Him and his brother both screaming. Like the guy was just telling you, I don't want to do backflips. I don't want to do backflips. And I just told him, I was like, it sounds like he's not doing great, but he's actually doing good. And this is the reason why. Like, he's anxious. This is what he's saying. What I do best is tell parents what their kids say at home before they tell me. So if I can tell you how your kid acts before you tell me how your kid acts, then I look like I have the upper hand. Like I know what I'm talking about.
You know what you're talking
about. Then they'll listen to me a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, your kid's been saying this all week. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do this. They keep talking about it. It's because they're anxious. Once they do it, they'll get over it. And the lady was like, oh, thank you so much. Because she thought that her kid was like the worst kid in the world. Every parent thinks their kid's the worst. Like, oh, he's crying. I'm so sorry my kid's crying. It's like, this is what we're supposed to do. Some kids are going to come in crying. They do every day of the week. So allowing them to know that their kid's not the worst one and just explaining to them the process. And it only works, though, if it works. Like, if I explain you the process and then your kid's still screaming, then you're like, this doesn't work. But what we have and what we do is, like, it works every single time. So I can confidently tell you when your kid's going to swim, how your kid's going to swim. After the first 30 minutes, I can give you a description of what your kid's process is going to look like. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get to my other coaches, so they have the same confidence as I do, to tell the parent, like, this is how it's got to be done. I know what I'm doing. I do this every day. So.
No, exactly, man. And that's where parent education is so important. You know, when I get a new client, a private client specifically, I'll go over all the things. What are we going to do when he does this? What are we going to do when she does this? How are we going to handle it when she starts to cry? You know, do you want to be in the water? Do you want to be out of the water? I can teach any which way, you know. With the cool thing about doing the private at-home clients is I can mold it to however the parent wants to do it. And honestly, dude, I've had clients that I've taught for years. That is their choice. And I am happy to do it because I have a client for years and I can still teach the kid. I can still implement my tactics, how I so choose, you know. But every parent has their way of how they want their kids to learn. Now, at our school, it's different, like you. When they come to the school, there's a way it's going to be done and so on and so forth. And like you said, we only see them 30 minutes once a week. And there's 2 other kids in their class, you know? So they're really only getting 10 minutes, you know, learning.
What are your thoughts on parent-child classes versus the one-on-one for the little kids?
The cool thing about parent-child classes is you can work on that parent anxiety, which is important because if you got a super confident parent that's not afraid to let their kid go in the pool, and that kid's going to learn, right? Because again, if I'm only seeing that kid once a week in a group class, in a parent and me class where I got 4 other or 5 other parents with their kid, I need a confident parent. So I will work on that with that parent. Now, the private lesson, am I going to get quicker results? Yes. I'll get that child swimming in, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depends on their age, depends on where we're at, right? But the parent and me classes have their place too, because that parent anxiety is what's holding those kids back from not just swimming, from everything, every sport they're going to go into, their life when they turn 18 and they move out. We're doing a lot for that kid in those parent and me classes. So
I like that answer. I have a guy who does my parent-child classes. I personally don't like them. Not that I don't like them. I just think like
I know you don't like
other arguments is that it takes too long. It just takes too long for me. I'm like, let's get this kid swimming. I take the kids in 15 minutes to a year old, 2 years old, whatever they are. But I've been watching my guy do it, and he actually does a really good job of getting the parents to do the stuff that they're supposed to do. Where I've seen other classes the reason I don't like them is because they're just playing around. And if the parents, like you said, if the parent's anxious, they're actually making it worse for the kid.
Yeah.
Because the kid can feel their emotions, and also if they're not doing it correctly, it could either make the kid drink water or just be uncomfortable. So that's why I'm like, I don't really like him. But watching my guy do it, he's actually pretty good at getting the parents to do the skills. The kids are all going underwater the right way and stuff. And I was like starting to turn a little bit. I'm like, all right, it's not that bad.
It's important. It really is. It has a lot of value. And you know what? Every new parent that comes into my Parent to Me class, I welcome them by explaining, this isn't a singing and songs class. I'll sing some songs if the kid needs it, but you're in swim instructor training right now. This is you becoming an instructor. And then again, if you give the parent the tools to be able to teach their own kid, in our classes, they're not all together at my specific location. I have all the parents on their own, and I go up to each parent. I work on that child's individual issues or whatever they're working on, right? So I got one child that's petrified and super scared. They're going to be on the stairs, sitting, playing comfortability splashing drills. I got another kid that's a nut, and he jumps into the pool head first and doesn't care about his life. That kid's going in the deep end with dad, and we're going to make him swim back to the wall 100 times if that's what it takes. And that's the difference between like my class and a typical Parent to Me class. I work on where the parent is at and where the child is at, and I try to pair the two so that way they can overcome that anxiety and that fear that they have. And a lot of the times, man, I gotta hold the hands of the parent while they're holding the child, and I just guide them through the drill a couple times, and then I just see these parents open up.
How's it going? I'm gonna talk to my guy about the parent side. See if he do more with the parents. Talk to them. I like that.
It's a whole educational thing, like it really is. And once they come in the pool, I can break down the parent. I literally put them through swim instructor training, exactly how I would train a staff member. I do the exact same thing. And then a lot of them are able to either get their next child, because a lot of them have 2, 3, 4 kids. Their next kid that they have is born. That child will, if they come back to us, because I already gave them all the skills, if they do, the kid's like a nut, and he's the one jumping head first in, and it's easy. It's easy to teach that kid. I got some parents, I don't even talk to them when they come to the class. They already know what to do, and they head to the back of the pool. And then I just like, okay, your kid's ready for now the intensive flip and float, or your kid's ready for group lessons. So anyway, I do love those classes personally.
All right. I'm turning on them. I'm starting to get there. I just like seeing kids swim. So I'm like, I don't want to play around. At Goldfish, it was too much song and dancing and too much fun for me. Even though it's funny because I speak from both ends of the spectrum. I'm like, oh, it's too much fun, but my whole class is about fun.
Yeah.
So it's like I miss those two things together, really every single class. But I'm like, I need the kids to swim. I like the results.
Well, and you know why? We talked about this last time. Those bigger swim schools, they sing all those songs, they do all that stuff, and they do it for, because it's easier. It's easy to teach the next instructor. The Aqua Tots and Goldfish and all of them. They have young staff. I was recently at an ASD presentation on introducing autism children to the water. It was at an indoor swim school that's nearby, right? And they're a great school. I love everything they do. Obviously, they've been around for much longer than we have, and they're doing a good thing for the community, right? But most of their staff look like they're 16. Yeah. They can't teach the way you and me can teach. They just can't. Maybe in 5 years from now, maybe they'll be there like 20, but then there's maturity that comes into it and understanding how to communicate with the parents and all that. So a bigger school has to look at how can we get a 16-year-old to do this. Now maybe that's the way to go about setting a higher bar, not allowing 16-year-olds to teach.
That's what I do.
Right.
All my people are full-time grown-ups. I have to pay them. I start them at $52,000, and if I was a manager at Goldfish, they offer me $52,000 to run the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm paying people a lot of money to make sure they show up and do a good job and are a grown-up coach versus a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid who's just getting a part-time job and cycling through the system.
See, and that's going to be hard to a bigger school will never do that. They'll never do that. Only like us, we're smaller, we're more of a boutique style, we're more of we're going to get better results just because of that aspect right there. So,
well, here's the balance is the biggest goldfish in our area has about 2,000 kids. That's the one I used to work at. I have 2,700 kids on my waiting list. So if I had a big enough pool, I can match the biggest goldfish in my area. And the question is, can I maintain the number of coaches that I need in the style that I'm doing it in order to reach those amount of kids?
And can you do it again somewhere else?
Yeah.
That's
well, so yes and no. Yes, obviously we have to expand different locations, but so goldfishes are really, I would say, like 5 to 10 miles apart around here in Massachusetts. Each town has like their own goldfish, or people in that town go to that goldfish. But for me, people drive from other towns to come to me. So I pull from a bigger circle than they do. So I don't need as many schools as they do. I just need bigger pools. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'm going to do the sports school to get that many coaches by having them do different sports. So if you really like soccer, I can give you soccer hours and swimming hours. This way I'm still getting a full-time coach. They're just part-time in swimming and part-time in another sport. So that's my ultimate goal in order to keep up with the demand and pull from a bigger circle. So it's going to be hard. Obviously, they do it in the YMCAs and Goldfish because it's easier. Their bottom line's a little bit lower. But I think I'm going to hopefully beat them out with my style and my approach. But it cost me a ton of money in the beginning. It cost me a lot of money to pay these guys and make sure they're here 40 hours a week because they all get 40 hours a week versus Goldfish is going to give you like 3 to 7 or like 9 to 12 and then like a big gap. So we do benefits and all that stuff. So I'm actually trying to change that. Will it happen? I hope so. That's my business model, but it's going to be hard.
It'll happen for you. And like I said, other schools like yours and mine, like we're doing something similar. We don't do the 40 hours. We'll do 20 to 35 hours, somewhere in there. Some coaches have a set salary at only 15 hours. So like we need them to work 15 hours. That's a set salary. They get paid for that. And then anything they do on top of that is extra money. And we found that to be more convenient because we don't have an indoor school. So we have to close down because of weather and this and that and hurricanes. We're shut down for like 5 days, So, it's easy to do for smaller schools. It's really hard to replicate. And there's not a whole lot. I mean, there's a lot of great coaches, don't get me wrong, but I don't know. There's not a ton of them, you know what I mean? Where there's a ton of teenagers who can sing songs and teach the basic stuff. So
yeah. It's hard. I think about this all the time because I think the way it works is that I raise my price. So like I told you that.
The epiphany. Become like the best in your area, just kill your area.
Well, that's what I do. I charge 3 times more than anybody else in the area for my personal lessons. Yeah. So if I grow other coaches to be that good and I can grow the margin, then it works. If I have to baseline everybody at the same, then it gets really, really tight.
Right.
But if I can increase that margin, then the business model works. So we'll see in the next 3 years. I'm either going to have a ton of money or I'll be in the same spot.
One or the other.
One or the other. All right, we got like 2 minutes left. Let's just go over fear and anxiety one more time, then we'll get out of here. Always fun to talk to you. So what are your thoughts on the difference between fear and anxiety?
Oh, well, I think we talked about this last time, right? So anxiety, fear comes from anxiety, right? So once they get anxious about something, it's the fear will build up and then they just won't want to do it. My fiance deals with a lot of anxieties, a ton of things. Flying in an airplane, going in an elevator, going through tunnels, anything where she It's irrational thinking. It's thinking that the end of the world will literally happen if they come to this point, and it just becomes daunting in their mind. And then they start to think irrationally, like, I'm going to be swallowed by this tunnel or by this whatever it is. Let's say it's floating. I'm going to die if I float. And that's where your brain will start to go. So it's so important. This is why it's so important to make sure children feel safe in every aspect while you're teaching them. If you can't maintain a safe and loving environment while you're educating them, you're only going to make it worse, and you're going to do them more harm. So
just taking your example, I break it down into 3 categories: it's fear, anxiety, and irrational. So it sounds like you said your fiance. It sounds like she's irrational, and this is how I break it down. I could show you this another time, but irrational people need an irrational coach. Now, how you're irrational depends on the person. They either need somebody who's like super hard, or somebody to make it feel like it's kind of super silly, but so out over the extreme. Then you have somebody who's just anxious, but they're not irrational. They just have like a normal set of anxiety, and that person needs to kind of push through it a little bit quick. And sometimes I separate it between physical and verbal anxiety. So verbal would be like changing the way that you say it, kind of relieves their anxiety. So like one kid doesn't want to do dips, and that's going underwater, like the goldfish way. Change the word to spaceships and do the same exact thing. He loves spaceships, but he doesn't like dips because he correlated something with the word. Or other kids are physically anxious, so if they don't physically do it by themselves, they're never going to get over their anxiety. So they kind of need the push to kind of go in there. And then the fear for me is somebody who's more reserved and quiet and generally scared of something specific. They usually need more of the comfort and the love approach, like the fun environment, calming them down, and then they can swim. But I'd love to share that with you one day. I'll send it over to you, and you can read through it and either pick it apart or like it. Just we can chat about it.
Okay, definitely, man.
I'll send it over to you, and you can take a look.
For sure.
All right. I guess that's our hour. It was great talking to you again. I'll look into the USS Swim Association. Maybe we'll get to one of those conferences.
Worth it, bro. It's so worth it. There's just so many people to talk to and connect with, and you're going to see a lot of people that do exactly what you do, and then there's a lot of people that don't. So
I want to do a call with somebody who's against me, and we can go back and forth.
There's a lady on Facebook who hates me. Let me find her, and I'll
send her to me. I'll get one with her.
I'll send her your details. All right, bro.
All right, have a good day.
You too. Bye.